2 episodes ago, I talked about overthinking and how sometimes we can talk ourselves out of a situation, an opportunity, or doing something before we even try. And I still believe that. I still think we should be mindful of that, but we shouldn't let overthinking kill our motivation or stop us from taking steps forward or stop us from trying something new and assuming the outcome before it even happens. But I also want to add something important, that it is okay to think logically, to think wisely, and to make sure that what you're doing or what you want to do aligns with who you are and whatever season you are in life. Sometimes we turn down every opportunity because we're afraid and we don't give ourselves a chance to see what Jesus was trying to do through that experience or through that opportunity. And that brings us into today's episode, where I'm going to be talking about when God redirects our lives, when doors close, and how we can trust Him when things don't go as planned. Hey friends, welcome to That's Alright podcast. I'm your host, Ray, and I am so excited about today's topic. I hope that the little introduction, got you wondering what's this episode gonna be all about? And you're ready to dive into today's topic and that it, gets you thinking. So let's get into it. So when I'm talking about God redirecting our lives, I'm talking about when God is the roadmap and we are trusting Jesus through the process, the journey, the path, the situation, even when we don't understand what He's doing. Those closed doors are more than just a closed door. And a closed door is when something you hoped, prayed, or planned for doesn't happen. So for example, this can be a job opportunity that you wanted, a relationship, a friendship, a dream or a goal, or even an unexpected change. I have a few points that I want to talk about. So the first one is closed doors doesn't mean God has forgotten about you. And I know a lot of times when we think of closed doors or opportunities that didn't happen that we prayed for, we think that, God doesn't hear us, He doesn't hear our prayers, and He doesn't care about us, and He just forgets about us. That's not the case. God listens, cares, and He wants us to succeed, to grow, to learn, but He also wants the opportunity, the path, or the situation to be right for us to be ready for it and prepared for whatever the outcome is, and simply for us to learn from it. Every experience, every opportunity, every outcome is a learning lesson, and we do have to be prepared for it. So if you ask for something and it wasn't meant for you, He will close that door, meaning that you won't get the opportunity, you won't get the job, you won't get the achievement, but He will lead you somewhere else. He will get you a different opportunity, a different job, a different achievement or reward. He will give you something better. He will take you somewhere He knows that you will succeed in and that you will get so much experience from. And it can also mean that it wasn't the right time. So that not necessarily that the opportunity wasn't meant for you, but the timing wasn't. And it's not necessarily a no, but it's a not right now. So you can get the opportunity, but just not in this moment. And then lastly, to lean on Jesus during troubled times, confused moments, and times when you just literally just sit and cry. He wants you to turn to Him and go to Him. It can be so easy for us to leave Jesus where we last talked to Him. So the last time that we prayed to Him and we got what we wanted, it's so easy for us to leave Him there and to not ever pray to Him again until we need something else. So from the bad outcome or when we don't get what we want, not only do we learn from it, we grow deeper connection with Him. And I think that's amazing when that happens. Something important to remember as a follower of Christ is that Jesus is the director and the guide of our lives. And if something doesn't go the way that we planned, then we have to know that it must be for our own good and that He is working on something so much better for us. And the second point is that God sees what we can't. We can rethink a million times. We can create a long pros and cons list. We can ask a bunch of people about it or talk about it so much, but we never know what the outcome will be. We will never know 100% what will happen until we actually do it. God knows what we can and can't handle. He knows what we need to learn from, what we need to experience. And what we are experiencing now may be leading us, teaching us, or preparing us for something better or bigger that He has for us. And I think if you experience something or went through something that is really bad, or it was just a rough, tough moment for you, it was like your weakest moment, that it can strengthen you. It will build you up, because if you went through that, if you got through that, if you handled that, then it's almost like whatever weak moment that I'm going through, whatever troubled moment that I'm going through, I can handle it because I handled something that I thought was so bad. I thought that I could never get out of it, but if you got through it, then nothing that happens to you, you can't get through. I do want to touch on something that I I believe it does correlate to what I'm saying. You probably heard the saying before, God gives His strongest soldiers the toughest battles. And it's meant to be comforting. You use it during someone's tough times, but it's not biblical. And I think the message could just be a little bit more clear, because it can come off a certain way to certain people. What I think is a better way to say this is that God will use the toughest battles in our lives to help shape, build, and mold us spiritually and mentally. Going back to what I was saying about God knows what we can and can't handle, and whatever we are experiencing is a learning lesson, I believe that whatever miss or delayed opportunity or bad outcome that we experience is God's way of shaping us, and He will use that experience and outcome to help us move forward in life. We will never get every single thing that we want, but if we learn to move forward with whatever we didn't get, whatever we didn't experience, then we can learn to build resilience, we can learn to build strength, we can learn to handle different outcomes, different situations, handle our emotions. There's so many things that we can learn from. And on top of that, God will never leave us alone. Whatever we are experiencing, He will never just leave us there to experience it by ourselves. If we go to Him and ask for help or strength or whatever it is that we need, He will give that to us. So He doesn't just give His strongest soldier a tough battle and just leave it at that. He will help whoever, regardless if they're strong or they're weak, in any battle. And I think that, that's amazing. We can lean on Jesus through whatever we're experiencing, if it's good or bad. So the third point that I want to get into is that disappointment and trust can coexist. It's so important to say this, to say that we can be disappointed in God and we can still trust Him. I think when it comes to using words like disappointed or upset with God, we kind of just we get iffy with it. We kind of get like, oh, you shouldn't be disappointed, or you shouldn't say those type of words when it comes to God. But I think that you can be disappointed in the outcome, the situation, and still trust Him, still trust the process, and still trust the journey. I don't think that makes you a bad person. I don't think it makes you a bad Christian. It doesn't make you love Him less or not have faith in Him and not have trust in Him at all. So this could be that maybe you applied for a job and you prayed about it and you still didn't get it. And you were disappointed with that. You were upset with that, and you were confused with God with that outcome because you prayed about it and you expected Him to allow you to have that job. So it's okay to say out loud that you are angry, you're upset, you're confused, you're sad about this happening. And you can also still ask questions. I think that's another thing where we shouldn't ask questions, but you can ask questions. Jesus asked questions. He encouraged questions. He loved questions. And I think when you ask questions, you are deepening your faith. I think there is a huge difference when you say to Jesus that you don't understand what's going on, you don't understand why this is happening, but I still trust you, versus you asking questions out of anger, pride, or you're refusing to believe that He is good. Jesus welcomes our doubts, our confusions, and any emotions that we have. Jesus experienced and had emotions, so it's like, why shouldn't we? And he also calls us to trust his character even when we don't have all the answers. So we can still ask the questions, why didn't it go as planned? What are you teaching me right now? What do I need to do moving forward? Or what do I need to change or do better? I think those questions are valid and they're not bad. Trusting God isn't, feeling confident and knowing all the answers. It's you choosing to still walk with him even when you're confused, when you had a bad experience, when things don't go the way that you hoped and that you prayed for. I like to think of it this way. I would not be angry, mad, upset, disappointed at someone that I didn't believe in, that I didn't care for, that I didn't love. So if you are upset, mad, or angry, disappointed in God or in something that he didn't let happen for you, then that means that you believe in him and that you trust him and that you care for him and that you love him. You just have to make sure that those emotions are coming from a good place in your heart and that you aren't questioning him in a negative way or questioning his power and what he can do for you. And it's not coming from a place of pride and like deep anger to where you walk away from him. So simply, it's just important on what you do with that emotion, where if you are angry, if you're disappointed, if you're upset, you bring those emotions to Jesus and you lay it at his feet, you pray about it, and you ask him to help you get out of this place of disappointment, this place of anger, and that you don't misplace it and that you ask for understanding or better understanding. And I think you probably all know who I'm about to mention about this being angry and disappointed at God when we don't get the things that we want or things get taken away from us. I think about Job. I think about how Job lost so much. He went through a lot of things that I don't even know how I would handle if I got those things taken away. But he was very upset. He was hurt. He was mad. He was confused. He questioned God. He expressed so much pain and he wrestled with it, with what was happening. But not once did he ever stop believing in him. Not once did he ever stop believing in God. His faith wasn't shown by pretending that he was hurt, pretending that he didn't feel a type of way. His faith was shown by expressing his feelings, expressing his hurt and bringing it to God. And God got him through it. God, gave him understanding. And I think we just have to think about that story in the Bible whenever we are experiencing pain, confusion, and that we just continue to have faith in whatever circumstance that we are going through. And just know that you will make it out of whatever it is. You will be able to succeed in so much. And you just have to keep the faith. And point number 4 is that redirection is not rejection. I think one of the hardest parts about a closed door is that we take it personally. When something happens, we start thinking, I must not be good enough, or God didn't choose me for a reason. I didn't get this because of this. Did I do something wrong? We start thinking of everything negative when something doesn't go our way. But a closed door doesn't mean Jesus is rejecting you. Sometimes it means that he is redirecting you. Redirection means that Jesus is leading you somewhere else because he knows that this way, this path is so much better for you. And that the other path, the other direction was just not it. So instead of him rejecting you, he redirected you. So a scripture that I always go to that got me through college is Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and to not harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. I think I literally should get this on the wall. I think I said this in the episode before, but it's such a good scripture to remember when we feel like, we've been rejected or things aren't going our way, and just to know that he has a better plan for us. Sometimes a closed door can come in a form of just an unexpected change. So maybe you plan to move somewhere, to start a new job, to launch something, to start something new, go to a certain school, just do something different. And suddenly everything changed. Everything went a whole different direction. Those moments can leave us questioning ourselves. It can leave us wondering what we did wrong, what we didn't do, what we should have did, all of that. And, we ask those questions because we think that we had everything mapped out, that we had everything planned perfectly, that there's no way it didn't go the way that we thought or the way that it should have went. And that's where trusting God comes into play, because God's plan can look so different from our plan, but that doesn't mean that it's bad or that it's worse. Sometimes different doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Sometimes different is good. So if you are experiencing a door that closed or an opportunity you didn't get, a job, a relationship, whatever it is that you prayed for, that you wanted and you didn't get it, don't think that God is saying no to you. It may be that He is saying, I have something better for you. I have something different for you. I have something that you will love, but you just can't see it right now. A redirection doesn't mean that the goal, the dream, or the hope that you had for yourself doesn't matter to Jesus. It just means that Jesus is not limited to the plans that we created in our mind. We sometimes limit ourselves and we don't ever see past the limit that we set for ourselves, but Jesus has no limit. He has so much for us. We just have to trust it. That redirection may be the very thing that you needed. And it can do so much good to you. So the fifth point is that growth happens in the waiting. So a closed door could be closed because you need to prepare for something. That having that door closed is allowing you to prepare for something bigger and for something better. If you were to have that door open, you won't have the time to prepare yourself for something that could be so good for you. And this preparation could be preparing your mind, your body, your spirit, just preparing you for what's coming, because you have to get prepared for stuff. You can't just go to war without preparing. You can't just go to the gym without preparing. You can't do anything without preparing yourself. You can't go into a meeting that you are talking in or you're presenting in and you're not prepared. So whatever you do in life, you have to prepare for something. And He might want to build you up, build your character up before He opens that door for you. And it's one thing to get the opportunity, but it's another thing to carry the opportunity. You could get this opportunity and you're not even ready to have the opportunity. You might not be ready to handle what's behind that door, what that opportunity holds, what that title holds. So He wants to make sure that you are prepped and prepared before you do something. We may be looking at an opportunity that we're ready for, and Jesus is like, not yet. You're not ready yet. You don't have discipline yet. You don't have patience yet. There's something that you aren't ready for that you can't see, but He sees, and He wants to send you off ready. So the question isn't only, Jesus, when will this door open? When will I get this opportunity? When will I get into this relationship? When will I have the friendships that I want? It's, Jesus, who are you shaping me to be able to get the things that I want, the things that I need, the things that you want me to have? So this is pretty much just the waiting season, and the waiting season can be the worst season because it feels like we are stuck. It can bring so much stress, anxiety, and a lot of uncertainty, but instead of focusing only on what we're waiting for, we can also look at what Jesus is doing in us during that time. Sometimes in the waiting, there may be lessons we need to learn, habits we need to break, healing that needs to take place, or areas in our faith that needs to grow. You just have to think that He may be using this season to change us. So the last point that I want to make before I end this episode is that we become attached to our own timeline. We may get attached to the way that we wanted things to go, and when it doesn't go our way, when something changes, we immediately think that something is wrong. But just because something didn't go our way or something looks different doesn't mean that Jesus isn't working and He isn't doing things behind the scenes to make sure that we succeed. When we move at our pace and we do things on our timing, we end up rushing things. We move ahead before we're ready. We miss steps, and we end up just questioning everything. But when we go at God's timing, things are not rushed. Things are according to plan. Each step leads us into the next step, and each step prepares us for the final step. and prepares us for life in the future that we have ahead of us. And we just have to trust it, even when it doesn't feel like you're going anywhere. And even when you're in the slow season, you're in the season of waiting, you're in whatever season, you just have to trust God's timing. I hope this episode gave you a different perspective on closed doors, and that it reminded you that not every missed or delayed opportunity or change in direction is rejection, and that sometimes what feels like a closed door is actually Jesus redirecting you. And it can be his timing, his protection, or him leading you somewhere that you don't see for yourself. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will see you guys next Thursday.